welcome to Catholic Life, ordinary people with extraordinary faith. I'm Deacon Jodi Moscona. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today I am truly blessed. I'm blessed to have one of my true friends in this world with me today, Father Eddie Martin. I remember him as deacon before he was a deacon. We go going to Manresa with you and Jenny and me and Darlene. I mean, we go way back, and so this is like one of those supercharged.
I have a lot of people still call me Deacon Eddie, and I've been called a lot worse, so I'm pleased with that.
So Father Eddie is now down in Napoleonville. They banished him to the boonies, but they do that to the best of us, right? I'm just kidding. We'll tell you a story in a second, but how are you?
I'm doing great. The people are down there in Whoville, like I like to call it, Napoleonville, Lavelyville, and Plottonville, are just the most wonderful people. Boy, I'm having a hard time fitting in my pants. I mean, one day I was doing a daily mass with about 10 people in it, and I got some laryngitis and I was losing my voice. Next morning, there's like 8 quarts of soup on my front porch, and 2 other ladies called me. I said, "Oh, no, wait, my refrigerator's." They're just awesome. I'm in very good hands.
That is fantastic. I love it down there. I absolutely 100% love it down there. Of course, we were talking before. Many of my priest friends have been through there, so it's been very, very good. So for those of you that don't know Father Eddie's background, we're going to get into his background because he wrote a book about it. But let's talk about the journey to the priesthood. Okay, so you're just a dude like me, and somehow you get called to inquire about the diaconate.
You know, actually, Jody, when I had like my second or third confession, I felt a call. St. Mary's and New Roads. I remember stepping out there and looking out over Falls River, and the sun was setting. It was an October day, and it was like all the planets aligned because God finally turned the air conditioner on in Louisiana to breathe. And I don't even remember what I'd done. I probably called somebody a name or something, but Father Lefebvre, Monsignor Lefebvre, was the priest there at that time. He had me laughing and lifted me up. I walked out of that confession feeling like I could fly. I said, "Wow, this man makes people feel like they can fly for a living. That's what I'm going to do when I grow up. What a better way to spend your life than making people feel this good." And I told everybody I was going to be a priest until I was about the 8th grade at St. Thomas More, and we started having boy-girl dances. "Oh, I'm sorry, God, I'm a big flirt. I've always loved those beautiful ladies. Can't take my..." I don't know what I was ever thinking. I don't think I could be a priest. And then, as it turned out, I got the call to the diaconate as years went by, and service just became so overwhelming in my life. I thank Father Jerry Martin a lot for that. He kind of gave me a call one day and said, "Well, you're getting your feet washed on Holy Thursday." I said, "I'm not worthy." And he said, "No, I prayed about this, and your face, the first one count, you're going to see us Thursday at 6. And he hung up. And I sat there on the phone saying, "Well, why aren't I worthy?" And I said, "I better get my..." Well, that's God saying, "Have a heart attack and get on up here. Let's clear matters." So I changed my life from that point on. And the more I gave, of course, you know how it is. You can't outgive God. No. The more I wanted to give. And it just led one thing. Next thing you know, I'm being ordained a deacon. And I didn't know it, but as I was being ordained, she was already terminal, and neither one of us even knew she was sick at that point.
Oh, wow.
That's how left-handed and sneaky that little cancer can be.
But you know what? Let me just interject. That's how God works. Because if the diaconate board had known about it before, you might not have been ordained. You're right. You know, because God is going to control the situation, even when the church is trying to get it away. You know what I mean? So,
God for that, huh?
Yeah. So that's kind of there's a underlying God part of that, you know, that y'all didn't know at that point. And of course, that gave you the opportunity to totally enjoy the blessing of the ordination, the vesting. She was a part of that, you know, that I got goosebumps just thinking about it.
It's such a wonderful gift that God gives us the opportunity. Any men out there who are thinking about diaconate, I can't recommend it highly enough. It's a life-changing event, and it's a fulfillment level that you just rarely will experience anywhere else.
Absolutely. So you become a deacon, and tell us about where you were assigned and how that went.
Well, I was able to stay at my home parish of St. John the Evangelist, where I raised my family since 1980. Buried my wife there, my daughter there. All my kids got their sacraments there. It was just home, you know?
Right.
And I stayed there until after she passed, and of course I went to seminary. And it was so funny because all our life together, she kept telling me, "You know, if I ever die, you need to remarry, because it's the best compliment you can give your wife is that you want to remarry again. It's a good experience," you know? And of course, course, as you know, once you're ordained to the diaconate, there's no remarrying
There's no
after you married
right.
the church. And so that option was out the window. So once you got a diagnosis, it was so nice to be able to talk with the love of my life about what life would look like after the love of my life was taken out of the equation. And she was, oh, you got to be a priest. As a matter of fact, one day when she was told she had 4 months or less to live, she comes home and she starts calling all these contractors. Said, new bathroom, going to change the cabinets in the kitchen, all this. I said, Jenny, what are you doing? You don't care about all this stuff. You got 4 months left on this earth and you're going to spend it with your house all torn up? Why are you doing this? Her answer was, well, when I'm gone, you're going to need to be a priest. For you to be a priest, you got to sell this house. For you to sell this house, all this has to happen, and you're too cheap to do it. So I got to take care of it before I go.
That was Jenny.
She never lost her sense of humor and everything.
Awesome.
And she was very serious about all that. And she did get all the work done. And of course, I never sold the house after that. But my daughter's really enjoying all the nice improvements we made to it.
That is awesome. You know, I remember when you were at St. John in Prairieville. Little did I know that your pastor was going to be mine someday. At that time, I was at the cathedral, and so you know, you were in the boonies and I was downtown, but I was living in the boonies because I lived in Prairieville. So our paths almost crossed, and they were like running parallel to each other all that time. So tell me about when you were a deacon, how you knew that you were going to be a priest. Did you always knew when she was sick that you were going to be a priest, or was there
I
any
didn't
doubt?
always know, because as you recall, in our diaconate formation, they told us, if your wife dies, don't think you're going to be a priest. That's a whole different set of charisms and skill set, and you've already got a very important calling to God to be a diacon. This is your place, so don't get any ideas. But of course, I did feel a stronger call. I'd always felt that call to the priesthood, and we had such a shortage, and I thought that I had what it would take to be a decent priest. So I'll never forget, it was after the next class got ordained, and I went to Bishop Munch here at Catholic Life Center during the reception. All those people trying to chase him down and I said, Bishop, I don't know if I should be even talking to you about this. I said, but I think the Lord's calling me into your priesthood. We were told diacon, don't even think about it. Should I continue to try and discern this, or is this not ever going to even happen? Should I just flush this out, And he stopped in the middle of that floor and he put his hands on my shoulders. And I cried just thinking about it. And he called down the Holy Spirit to help me discern what
That's
God
awesome.
wanted me to do. He said, I'm not telling you what you need to be. You need to let the Holy Spirit lead you. And I will never forget that day. It was one of these, another life-changing moments.
When a bishop puts his hands on you, it's a very powerful thing.
It is, especially, I just love Bishop Munch. Of course, Bishop Duca we've been so fortunate here.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I got a little part of that story you don't know about.
Oh, okay.
So when I was at the cathedral, wherever the bishop went, I made it wasn't required, but I made it my job to go. Okay, even when he went down in New Orleans to Brother Martin gathering, I'm a Brother Martin graduate. I went down and he turned and said, "What are you doing here? You don't need to follow me around." He knew that I was loyal to him. Okay, and I was till the end. Well, one day we were at, I want to say St. Paul's over in Baton Rouge. We had done something. We were in the sacristy. Maybe it wasn't there. Anyway, he was sitting there. He says, "Come here, I want to tell you something." What? He says, "I'm thinking about sending the 2 deacons whose wives died to Wisconsin." And I went, "Why?" He says, "I just think it might be a thing." I said, New Orleans is a lot closer.
Well, I thank you so much, because I researched that seminary in Wisconsin, and it has tunnels connecting the different buildings because there's so much snow and so cold. I said, that's the last place this little cooney needs to go.
Bishop Munch might not even remember that, but we had that conversation, and we just had a relationship. We were just talking. It wasn't like God was sending down the Holy Spirit.
Yes, I actually piloted a program. I was the first person in my age and having come from the diaconate to go into it, and it was something they attempted before.
I know, 2 years, right?
Yes, I was the pilot program.
That's awesome.
And I got to tell you, Pat Broussard
and then now David.
David both called me in. We had a couple of dinners and said, "Don't you mess this up. If you mess this up, you're going to mess it up for the 2 of us. So everybody's got their eyes on you. Better do it right."
That is
pressure.
so cool. That's so cool. So we're fellow alumni, as it turns out. So that's a good deal. So it seems to me that the transition wasn't a transition at all, except for a smooth movement from one to the other, because you kind of knew that you knew that you knew, and you knew when you talked to Bishop Munch, you kind of knew already.
And I've just got to tell you, the staff down there in Notre Dame, so Father Jim especially, Wayner, he sat me down and he said, what would be the biggest inhibitor to you being a good priest? What do you think stands in your way the most? And I said, well, I've still got a daughter who's left the church, and I don't have her resolved, and I feel like I haven't finished she hadn't listened to me, hadn't listened to me in years, but I feel like I've got work undone there. He said, let's get one thing straight. God made you a dad a long time before you ever thought about being a father. You are always going to be a dad. Church isn't asking you to give that up. Mm-hmm. Lifted the weight of the world. He is such amazing. I'd walk through fire for that man in a heartbeat.
He turned that place around.
Oh, he's an amazing spiritual leader, and just, he's like a father, a brother, a dad, whatever you need, he's there,
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you were there 2 years. I was there 5 years, because I crunched that 2-year program into 5 years.
Well, I crunched my 2-year program, expanded into 3. I took everything I could physically attend.
So that's cool. That's good. So when you go to the seminary, it's not just about the education, although it's top notch. It's a lot of formation. So I'm sure that it brought you a lot closer to God, and I'm sure that invigorated you internally to be a good priest, more than up here, more down here.
I just have devoted the rest of my life to him, whatever way he wants me to be, whether it was priest or if that didn't work out and ended up being a deacon. I wasn't setting any standards. I was following the path that he kept laying out before me until I hit a wall and told me to go somewhere else.
Yeah. Well, God has a way of getting you to do what he wants you to do.
He absolutely
irrespective of your own inclinations.
Kind of like this book, and the same thing with diacon. People have, what God you going to do? Well, I must have had 20 people at St. John's. You ever thought about being a deacon? And it all happened like in a couple of months. Who put you up to this? What are you talking about? And I said, okay, well, God, I must not be giving you enough quiet time as you put out in your wonderful book a couple of years ago you gave me, Journey on Holy Ground. Maybe I'm not giving it quiet time, so he's got to have people hit me over the head with it. And the same thing happened after Jenny died with this book. I must have had literally 50 people tell me, you need to make a book out of this. This story is just too incredible, Mm-hmm. And there was one lady who came to her wake. Never met either one of us, crying her eyes out. And so I said, I'm a little confused. You never met once. Why are you here? And she said, well, y'all saved my marriage. I said, boy, I thought I was confused before. You never met once we saved your marriage? She says, well, a mutual friend put me onto your Caring Bridge site where we detailed all of our
problems. Wow.
And she said, my husband and I were just really fighting. Y'all were at a point where y'all had this terrible thing going on in your life, and it just made you closer. And so I had made up my mind. I was going to tell him he's got to the weekend to find an apartment. He's got to go. And here she, I went and read the journal you had, and I said, God, if y'all can do it, we can do it. And I went out to my husband, I kissed him, threw my arms around, apologized the way I was being, had him come read your entry. He kissed me, and he said, and we've made a dedication to our life. If y'all can do it, we could be that same couple.
Well, let's talk about Jenny after the break.
Okay, great.
All right. We're going to take a short break. We're talking to Father Eddie Martin, and we're going to get to the last dance after the break. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Join us for another great season of Beacons of Light, where we'll explore how we overcame the COVID-19 pandemic in serving people in situations of homelessness and poverty, how our volunteers in this local diocese put their love and faith into action and made a real difference by providing God's love to those in need. Join us on Catholic Light Television.
You can be the greatest, you can be the best, you can be the King Kong banging on your chest. You can beat the world, you can beat the war. You could touch a God, go banging on his door. You can throw your hands up, you can beat the clock. You can move a mountain, you can break rocks. You can be a master, don't wait for luck. Dedicate yourself and you can find yourself. Stand in the Hall of Fame.
Welcome back to Catholic Life. I'm Deacon Jodi Moscona, and I'm talking to one of my good friends, Father Eddie Martin. And boy, that was a great segment. Thank you so much for that. I'm
Thank
blessed.
you so much for having me here. You and everybody at Catholic TV. What a great opportunity you provided me.
I'm just so blessed. Listen, I loved Jenny. I mean, I just want you to know that because I can remember going to Manresa, and Darlene would say, "What a wonderful lady." She had her bandana on. She had no hair. She would share about when y'all would go on your mission trips. She was just full of life and full of God, and you could just tell that she was awesome, and she touched everybody like that.
Her flame never dimmed. It was just so amazing to me. I kept waiting for her to have her collapsed spirit so I could be the strong, supportive husband. I never got to play that role. Like, you cheated me here,
She's supporting you.
I'm just holding on her coattails, trying to keep up with her. Jeez.
So before the break, you were saying numerous people, 50 people said, write a book, and so you wrote a book. So the name of it is Last Dance, and how are people going to get it?
Okay, it's available at all the local Catholic bookstores here in town and the one in Gonzales. I'd like to expand it out to Hammond and other areas and everywhere our diocese reaches. I'd like to get it nationwide. I'm hoping to go on EWTN, but right now there's thelastdance.store is our website. You can also get it at eBay, Amazon. I don't make any money if you buy it from one of the internet sites. I price the book so that I get the message out. I'm not worried about making money off of it. I'm worried about getting the message out.
Can they get it from you personally?
They can. Actually, my business down in Prairieville, my daughter is still running Acadian Graphics. And I have a couple always keep in my car, and I got some down at the offices in Whoville. But at Acadian Graphics in Prairieville, a lot of...
So emartin@diobr is his email. Email him and tell him you want a book. He'll sign it like he did for me, tell you that you're a great person.
They got good taste if they're buying a book, we know. Huh?
That's right. So let's talk about it. Tell us about Jenny.
Well, we dedicated our life to the Holy Family when there was a terrible tragedy, our third year of marriage. Some kids were left out on the street on suitcases. The mom had enough, told me to go live with the father. Called him and went to bed. The next morning she wakes up, they're still sitting there. In August, they were mosquito bait all night on their driveway. So she calls the father and says, "Why didn't you come get them?" And he said, "I don't want them either. If you don't want them, find somebody else to raise them." And we saw the kids out there. Jenny went by 3 times during the day, tried to convince them to come wait in our house, wherever, brought them sandwiches. Couldn't get them to do anything but cry. That's all they were doing. A 12-year-old, 13-year-old girl, 7 or 8-year-old boy. And it just broke our hearts. And a couple weeks later, we found out what had happened. And so she came to me. Now, she's a recent convert to the Catholic Church at this time. Okay, had Marian issues. And she said, "Would you be willing to consecrate our marriage to the Holy Family?" I'm like, exactly what is she talking about? But she was crying. I couldn't stand watching those big, beautiful brown eyes filled with tears. So I said, yeah, whatever. And so I knocked all the dirt off my hands and put it in a flower bed there in our front yard. And she took them and she led us through the most beautiful prayer that God would use our love and our life and any kids he would see fit to give us. We only had miscarriages in our attempts at that point. And said to do something to help right this train wreck of marriage and divorce in America and all the brokenness that comes from it. And so we got involved immediately in the church, started being a host couple for engaged couples. I've been preparing couples for marriage for 41 years now. That's awesome. And it was the greatest ministry I ever did. The Focus series we went through, which I know you probably did the same thing.
Yeah.
And I saw a lot in your wonderful book when you talk about marriage. So many of the principles were also lined out in there. It's amazing, and it's so true. That's just the key, the golden key. Anybody can have this great marriage. So anyway, we did everything we could to dedicate it and consecrate it. We became the married couple. And after she died, we still want to keep our ministry going. I consecrated my priesthood to the Holy Family to try to continue. It's my number one goal, is to do as much as I can to help marriages. So the book, I have several goals and several target audiences. Okay, first of all, I want to show what a wonderful person Jenny was and what it's like to go through life, the faith that we're all supposed to have, where everybody can say let go and let God. Jenny lived it. I mean, even when they tell her you're going to die, you've got cancer, it's terminal, all it could do is make your remaining days as pleasant as possibly can for you. Okay, you might as well tell her it's going to rain today. I'm like, oh, false bravado. Nobody can be that at peace. And she was like, hey, we got work to do. You can sit out here and whine all day. Let's get back to work. Never went got a second opinion. Forbid me to pray that she would be healed. Prayed instead, whatever be God's will. And of course, I prayed God's will would be that she would be healed. I had to wake up yesterday, But anyway, so we went to see Sister Dulce. I never know how to say her name. I don't know Neil Lane. And she came in and prayed over, and she said, baby, Papa's not showing me a cure for you. My job here is to help you get ready to go home. So he may change his mind later. Don't get too disappointed. But for right now, my job is to help you get ready to go home. And she asked her, she said, would you be willing to help Papa with something? And Jenny said, well, sure. You know how many people leave Papa because they can't understand bad things happen to good people? Would you be willing to help them with that? Yeah, absolutely. Would you be willing to die for him for that? Yes. I'm sitting here, I just knew she was going to heal her, I couldn't even process that she might actually die. She was my whole world, And so I felt like somebody put a 50-ton anvil on my chest, and like all the air had been sucked out of the room. I wanted to jump over, no, I'm not okay with that. I want to know what's behind door number 2, please. Give us another choice. And she said, she only asked for one thing to pray for. She said, is it okay if we pray that I pass, but my mom passes before me? I'm her favorite. I don't want to be the reason she dies. It'll kill her when I die, And it was amazing. You just got told, here's your last chance at life, and your first concern is how do you make it more palatable to someone else? And then as we left, and I'm talking to her, and we're going home, and she never asked the oncologist after he said it was terminal how much time she had. And of course, I had to know. So I had called him and found out, but I wasn't telling her until she asked. I mean, that's a hard thing to face, and she may not want to. So when we're leaving, I said, well, what do you want to do with the days you got left? This is our last chance at being healed, and you're having life. Unless God does some miraculous miracle and you don't seem to even be looking for one, you want to go ahead and die for him. But, what do you want to do with your remaining days? And she thought and thought, and she finally came up with, I want to make that mission trip to Honduras this summer. And I looked at her like, well, yeah, we'll make the mission trip, but what do you want to do for fun? And Jodi, she looked at me like I'd been dropped on my head, and she said, what's more fun than a mission trip? I'm thinking to myself, I can think of about 50 things right off. And that's just how giving and how good she was. And she not only made that mission trip that summer, she made it the following summer too.
That's awesome.
And she was just an amazing, she was truly living the life God tells us. She put God at the center of everything. He was the center of all of our decisions, which the book is not about her death. It's about her life, okay? And how she lived to the last breath. And it's filled with flashbacks where I go back and I retell our entire story. And from the beginning, from our very meeting, we were both praying God would give us the right one. And when we realized that God had intervened in both of our lives to bring us together, she turned to me and goes, this is way bigger than the two of us. We better not screw this up.
Don't you love it?
And I mean, everything from leaving, I was a professional chemical engineer. I was one of the youngest guys to get to the level I was at in my plant. And they were talking about sending me all over the world to start up plants and all these great future ahead. And, she was knocking it out the park with pharmaceutical sales and company car for her and just real good stuff. And we walked away from all that and just started a business so she could be a stay-at-home mom, because that's what she felt called to do. That's awesome. And not only herself, but she set up the business where the other ladies she hired could be stay-at-home moms.
That's awesome.
And it was she had a great vision, and it was all, what does God want from me? I even asked her mother. I said, how did you ever instill such incredible faith in that girl? And she said, Eddie, she came that way. I can remember when she was 4 years old and I was crying over some fight John and I had, her husband, said, she came up to me and said, it's okay, Mama, Dad, God's got this. It's all going to work out. You don't have anything to cry about. She said, 4 years old.
Out of the mouth of babes.
I'm telling you.
That's awesome. I remember her as pious. Is that just because...
I got to tell you a story, Joe. You talked about our retreats at Mad Risa, silent retreats, of course. Jenny never could get, like at lunch, when we go eat and everybody's being silent, she would write on a napkin, it's like everybody's mad at each other. She goes, who's having a deep spiritual experience right now? Everybody's saying, how do I get the salt over here on this side of the table? And of course, she couldn't stay silent once we got back to our room. But, she was extremely... I don't know, I wouldn't use the word pious. You could sense she had a gift from God. She could tell you, you're messing up and you're heading down the wrong path, but she didn't judge you and you didn't feel judged.
I don't mean that. I think it's more closeness to God. That's what I mean by pious. Okay. Personal piety is when you and God get it.
Well, I would definitely agree with you there then. They were tight.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no coming between them. And
That's awesome.
And also, he was right in the middle of our marriage, which your book was very good about. You know, this is it's God's gig. It's like I like to tell the couples. God came, read Genesis 2. Man didn't come up with this. We can kid ourselves and call it between a man and a woman, whatever we want to do, you know. But this is God's thing.
This is
and,
God's
you know,
deal.
Jesus, when he's asked in Matthew 19, is it lawful? No, you hear the hair come up on his back. No, from the beginning, if you've not read, he's made a male. Anyway, it goes on. So it's just wonderful to see the way she embraced that, and we put him in the center of our marriage from the very beginning of our dating, realizing he had brought us together, and we always saw each other as a gift from God. So we always treated each other with total and ultimate respect. And it was just so easy to go through life with her. She was so amazing, and that nothing ever rattled her. We were almost bankrupt twice when we tried to build our business up from scratch. Started with a $4,000 loan, second mortgage on our house to buy a computer and some inventory to start, and we built it up to $1 million business in an industrial park down in Prairieville, and it really thrived. I mean, and God blessed it all the way. There were things we did for the church that ended up saving the business with a loan officer who lost a son at a car accident when he was 17. And she saw a painting that I did at St. John's, and she said, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to get your loan approved. Nobody would do something like that for a church. And this was at a time when the bank in question couldn't even make loans. They had made so many bad ones. The FDIC had come in and was controlling what loans they could and couldn't give.
Wow.
And sure enough, she got my loan approved.
That's how God works, man.
Absolutely.
That's how God works. Well, look, let me, we got a minute and a half or so left. Why don't you reach out to the people and share what Jenny would tell them?
Jenny would tell them not to be troubled by the day-to-day problems in the world, not the things that don't go their way. They would just had the wrong idea if things didn't work out, and God's showing them a better path down the road. For every door that closes, He's opening up plenty more over here. You just got to seek His will and His path, and your life is going to be so fulfilled, so sustained, so just overflowing with completeness, satisfaction. I'm sorry, I'm getting choked up thinking about her like this.
Well, I have goosebumps all through my body right now because I feel her presence.
She was so at peace. I don't know how else to describe it. You know, death was nothing for her. She knew what was going on. It's just a transformation. I'm going, like she said, don't ever shed a tear for me. She said, now I don't have to pick which one of y'all to ride herd on. I can, bilocate, and I can ride herd on all of y'all at the same time from here on out. And, you know, she was just amazing, totally at peace, and content, and fulfilled in life throughout.
That is awesome. The book is The Last Dance, and I am so blessed that you gave this to me today. And you know, this is number one on my reading list now.
Well, I hope you enjoy it.
I'm gonna break it. By tonight, I might not even go to sleep tonight. That's just the way I am. Get the book. Father Eddie Martin has been with us. Thank you so much for being with me.
Thanks for having us.
I love you, man. I love you so much,
Right.
and I do miss Jenny too. And I have these little holy cards from funerals, and those are the saints that I knew. And this is one of the saints that I knew.
Thank you so much, Jodi. It means the world to hear you say that.
And thank you for joining us today. You've been watching Catholic Life, ordinary people with extraordinary faith. Till next time, God bless everybody.
Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen.